First Peter 2, one of my favorite chapters in the Bible, page 1184 in the scriptures. Having put aside then all evil and all deceit and hypocrisies and envyings and all evil words, put all that aside. As newborn babes, desire the unadulterated milk of the word in order that you grow by it. Let's start right there. If indeed you have tasted that the Master is good. If indeed you have tasted that the Master is good, that Yeshua HaMashiach is good, that Jesus the Christ is good, put aside all evil, all deceit, all hypocrisies and envyings and all evil words, which 100% exist in the world because the world is full of men, and they 100% exist in the church because the church is full of men and women. And desire as newborn babes, desire the unadulterated milk of the word, unadulterated, undefiled, unchanged milk of the word, in order that you grow by it. Worship in spirit and truth, the unadulterated milk of the word, in order that you grow by it. That means that there's a compare-contrast here. There's a push-pull. There's a juxtaposition between what a lot of people teach over here and what the unadulterated milk of the word is over here, so that you might grow by it. Drawing near to him, Yeshua, a living stone, rejected indeed by men, but chosen by Elohim and precious. You also, as living stones, are being built up a spiritual house, a set apart or holy priesthood, to offer up spiritual slaughter offerings acceptable to Elohim through Yeshua Messiah. See, spiritual slaughter offerings acceptable to Elohim through Yeshua Messiah. Didn't we just read in Isaiah that the offerings that these people of the kingdom of Judah were giving were unaccepted by Yah? The answer to that is yes, because they were just going through the motions. They didn't have true belief. They didn't actually want to do this. They were just going through the motions, right? Having put aside then all evil and all deceit and all hypocrisies and envyings and all evil words. That's where they were. And so they didn't put that aside, and their offerings were not accepted. And so now through Yeshua here, a set-apart priesthood to offer up spiritual slaughter offerings acceptable to Elohim through Yeshua Messiah. A difference in the condition of the heart. You have true belief. You worship in spirit and truth because of Yeshua Messiah. Because it is contained in the scripture, see, I lay in Zion a chief cornerstone, chosen, precious, and he who believes on him shall by no means put to shame. Isaiah 28. This preciousness, then, is for you who believe, but to those who are disobedient, the stone which the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone, and a stone of a stumbling and a rock that makes for falling, who stumble because they are disobedient to the word, to which they also were appointed. They were appointed to this word, but they stumble in it because they're disobedient. Appointed to Yeshua. Now, I don't believe in coincidence, and we were just in Isaiah 1. Hear the word of Yahweh, Isaiah 1:10. Hear the word of Yahweh, you rulers of Sodom, and give ear to the Torah of our Elohim, you people of Amorah. The word of Yahweh and the Torah of Elohim are synonymous. They are the same thing. Now, if we go a little book in the Bible, you may have heard of it, called John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Elohim, and the Word was Elohim. And he, the Word, was in the beginning with Elohim. and all came to be through him, and that without him not even one came to be that came to be. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shines into the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. In the beginning was the Word. This is Yeshua. Yeshua is the Word. The Word is the Torah. Yeshua is the Torah. In verse 16 in John 1, and out of his completeness we all did receive, and favor upon favor, grace upon grace, for the Torah was given through Moshe. The favor and the truth came through Yeshua Messiah. The completeness of the Torah with the favor and the truth comes through Yeshua Messiah. So, back here in 1 Peter 2, you were called to this word. Verse 8, a stone and a stumbling and a rock that makes for falling, who stumble because they are disobedient to the word, disobedient to the Torah, disobedient to Yeshua, who stumble. You are stumbling because you are disobedient to the word, and the word made flesh, Yeshua Messiah, to which they were also appointed. You are appointed to being obedient to Yeshua, yet you're being disobedient. Yes, you may. Go get some. To which most would say, what do you mean I'm being disobedient? I'm doing the best that I can. I'm doing what I know how to do. Okay, copy that. John chapter 9. John chapter 15, verses 9 and 10. As the Father has loved me, I also love you. Stay in my love. If you guard my commands, you shall stay in my love, even as I have guarded my Father's commands and stay in his love. So Yeshua was obedient and guarded his Father's commands. What commands? The commands, the Torah, the Word, which of course he did, because in him there is no sin. And sin is transgression of the law, the Torah, the Word. So, of course there's no sin in him. There's no transgression in him. So, of course he guarded his Father's commands. But it says right here in John chapter 15, verses 9 and 10 that he did. And that if you love him, you are to guard the same commands as he guarded his Father's commands. Which would be being obedient, right? Who stumble because they are disobedient to the word, to which they were also appointed. But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a set-apart nation, and a people for a possession, that you should proclaim the praises of him who called you out of the darkness into his marvelous light, who once were not a people, but now the people of Elohim, who had not obtained compassion, but have now obtained compassion. Beloved ones, I appeal to you as sojourners and as pilgrims to abstain from the fleshly lusts which battle against the being, against the soul, having your behavior among the nations good, so that when they speak against you as evildoers, let them, by observing your good works, glorify Elohim in a day of visitation. In other words, beloved ones, I appeal to you as you travel out there in the world to abstain from fleshly lusts, so that when the world sees you, even if they speak against you as evildoers, your good works will witness against them, and esteem Elohim in a day of visitation. Be subject to every institution of man because of the master, whether to the king as supreme or to governors, as to those who are sent by him for punishment of doers of evil and praise for those who do good. Now, check this out. I've heard it preached, and I disagree, that this right here is Peter telling us to be subject to every institution of man. Your prime minister, your president, the evil global conglomerates, Corrupt judges, look, be subject to every institution of man. Negative. It's not what it says. Be subject to every institution of man because of the master, whether to the king as supreme, or to governors, or to those who are sent by him for the punishment of doers of evil and the praise for those who do good. Be subject to every institution of man because of the master, because of Yeshua. I read this as, oh, the king, the president, the prime minister, the sheriff is going to imprison me because of the master. All right, copy. You're going to cut my head off because of the master? Let's party. Gotcha. Be subject to every institution of man because of the master. There is nothing that comes above that relationship with the master. None of it. And so if you find yourself at odds with every institution of man, if you find yourself subjected by every institution of man because of the master, so be it. Can't we read elsewhere? My brothers, count it all joy when you fall into various trials. Yeah, because of the master. Because such is the desire of Elohim, that by doing good you should put to silence the ignorance of foolish men, as free, not yet using your freedom as a cloak for evil, but as servants of Elohim. Servanthood is huge. And there's a lot said in the word about freedom versus servitude. And it's really not understood because it's defined in the Torah. Mishpatim Torah portion keeps coming up, huh? The beginning of Exodus 21 addresses this straight away, what it means to be a servant. A servant serves that household. This is not slavery we're talking about. This is servitude. And so a free man doesn't have the covering of the house of the master. We are servants to Yeshua. We are under the covering of the house of the master. Not as free, yet not using your freedom as a cloak for evil, but as servants of Elohim. Respect all. Hey, run along. Respect all. Love the brotherhood. Fear Elohim. Respect the king. Servants, be subject to your masters with all fear, not only to the good and gentle, but also the crooked ones. For this is favor, because if a conscience towards Elohim anyone bears up under grief, suffering unrighteously, for what credit is there in enduring a beating when you sin? But if you suffer for doing good and you endure, this finds favor with Elohim. You taking an ass whooping because you sinned? Good, you deserved it. You take one and you didn't, now you're suffering on behalf of Elohim. You're building your character, son. Favorite verse, perhaps, in all the Bible. For this you were called, because Messiah also suffered for us, leaving us an example that you should follow in his steps, who committed no sin, nor was deceit found in his mouth, who being reviled did not revile in return, suffering did not threaten, but committed himself to him who judges righteously, who himself bore our sins in his body on the timber, so that we, having died to sins, might live unto righteousness, by whose stripes you were healed. For you were like sheep going astray, but have now returned to the shepherd and overseer of your souls. You were called to walk with Yeshua. For this you were called. Now that's an echo of Deuteronomy 13. Deuteronomy 13 verse 4. Walk after Yahweh your Elohim, and fear him, and guard his commands, and obey his voice, and serve him, and cling to him. What? Mic drop? Walk after Yahweh your Elohim, and fear him, and guard his commands, and obey his voice, and serve him, and cling to him. For this you were called, because Messiah also suffered for us, leaving us an example that you should follow in his steps. Zephaniah 3, right? Everybody knows where Zephaniah is. 6:30-ish. Yeah, 6:30. 3 verse 13. All of Zephaniah 3 should be read, but the remnant of Israel shall do no unrighteousness and speak no falsehood, nor is a tongue of deceit found in their mouth. For they shall feed their flocks and lie down, with none to frighten them. I come first, but for the lost sheep of the house of Israel, says Yeshua. Nor is a tongue of deceit found in their mouth. Speak no falsehood, nor is a tongue of deceit found in their mouth. Who committed no sin, nor was deceit found in his mouth. Interesting. How about some Isaiah 53 verse 9? Because, all this Old Testament stuff was just done away with, right? There we go. Isaiah 53 verse 9. How did I end up in Jeremiah? There we go. And he, Yeshua, was appointed a burial site with the wrong, and with the rich at his death, because he had done no violence, nor was deceit in his mouth. In Isaiah 53 is short. It's all about Yeshua. So let's just read this real quick. Who has believed our report, and to whom was the arm of Yahweh revealed? The arm, the outstretched hand, the Yod. We've talked about this. The outstretched hand of Yahweh is Yeshua. Who has believed our report, and to whom was the arm of Yahweh revealed? For he grew up before him as a tender plant, and as a root out of dry ground. He has no form or splendor that we should look upon him, nor appearance that we should desire him. Despised and rejected by men, a man of pains and knowing sickness, and as one from whom the face is hidden, being despised, and we did not consider him. Truly he has borne our sicknesses and carried our pains, yet we reckoned him smitten, stricken by Elohim, and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our crookednesses. The chastisement for our peace was upon him, and by his stripes we are healed. By whose stripes you were healed? Right over here, Isaiah 53. We all, like sheep, went astray, and each one has turned to his own way, and Yahweh has laid on him the crookedness of us all. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, but he did not open his mouth. He was led as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before its shearer is silent, but he did not open his mouth. He was taken from prison and from judgment. And as for his generation, who considered that he shall be cut off from the land of the living? For the transgression of my people he was stricken. And he was appointed a burial site with the wrong, and with the rich at his death, because he has done no violence, nor was deceit found in his mouth. But Yahweh was pleased to crush him. He laid sickness on him, and that when he made himself an offering for guilt, that he would see a seed, he would prolong his days, and the pleasure of Yahweh was prosper in his hand. And he would see the result of the suffering of his life and be satisfied. Through his knowledge, my righteous servant makes many righteous, and he bears their crookedness. Therefore I give him a portion among the great, and he divides the spoil with the strong, because he poured out his being unto death, and he was counted with the transgressors, and he bore the sin of many, and made intercession for the transgressors. This is all about Yeshua. I'm sure it's just a coincidence that Isaiah wrote this a couple thousand years before the time of Yeshua, right? Just a coincidence. So when Yeshua says, I come not to destroy the Torah or the prophets, but to complete it, what do you think he means by complete here? Did Yeshua do away with all this, or did he do all of this? See, because the Greek word complete is plerao, which means to embody, to be it, and Yeshua did all of this. He was all of this as prophesied in Isaiah 53. So when he says the same thing in Matthew 5:17, I come not to destroy the Torah or the prophets, but to complete it. Wouldn't that also mean to completely be it? Just like he is completely Isaiah 53. Well, of course, because the very next verse, Matthew 5:18 says, truly, truly, I say unto you, until heaven and earth pass away, not one yod, not one tittle shall fall from the Torah till all be done. And all has not been done yet. Last witness for this in 2 Peter, Malachi, verse 2. I have no remembrance where Malachi is. And luckily, that's why we have a thing in the front of the book. Malachi, page 645-ish. And we're looking at Malachi 2. And now, O priests, this command is for you. Remember, Yeshua is the high priest, right? And there's no sin in him, which means he doesn't transgress the Torah. So this command is for the priest. And now, O priest, this command is for you. If you do not hear, and if you do not take it to heart, to give esteem to my name, said Yahweh of hosts, I shall send a curse upon you, and I shall curse your blessings. And indeed I have cursed them, because you do not take it to heart. See, I shall rebuke your seed and scatter dung before your faces, the dung of your festivals, and you shall be taken away with it. And you shall know that I have sent this command to you, as my being my covenant with Levi, said Yahweh of hosts. My covenant with him was life and peace, and I gave them to him to fear, and he feared me and stood in awe of my name. Now, O priest, this command is for you. The Torah of truth was in his mouth, and unrighteousness was not found on his lips. And he walked with me in peace and straightness, and turned many away from crookedness. For the lips of a priest should guard knowledge, and they seek the Torah from his mouth, for he is the messenger of Yahweh of hosts. So, Jesus is the high priest now. Okay, I agree. That's in the book of Hebrews. But you should read your whole Bible so you know what that means, because one does not simply get to throw around the phrase high priest without understanding the implications of that. The Torah of truth was in his mouth, and unrighteousness was not found on his lips. He walked with me in peace and straightness, and turned many away from crookedness. For the lips of a priest should guard knowledge, and they seek the Torah from his mouth. For he is the messenger of Yahweh of hosts. For this you were called, because Messiah also suffered for us, leaving us an example, that you should follow in his steps, who committed no sin, nor was deceit found in his mouth, who being reviled did not revile in return, suffering did not threaten, but committed himself to him who judges righteously, who himself bore our sins, our lawlessness, in his body on the timber, so that we, having died to sins, might live unto righteousness, blamelessly walking in the commands. By whose stripes you were healed, for you were like sheep going astray, but have now returned to the shepherd and overseer of your souls. Bless y'all. Shalom.